Hey guys, today we're going to be drawing an isometric house. I'm using the iPad Pro with the Apple Pencil and the Procreate app. If you're new to Procreate, I also have a video called 25 Procreate Tips and Tricks, which I suggest to watch first because as I draw, I'll be using these shortcut actions. I will link that video below. So grab your favorite tea or coffee and let's start drawing. So first things first, we're gonna go into our settings, we're gonna hit drawing guide, then we're gonna hit edit drawing guide. So you got 4 options: 2D grid, isometric, perspective, and symmetry. So let's make sure we're under isometric, and you can adjust the opacity levels of the grid, as well as the thickness, as well as the grid size, and you can change the colors as well. Then you wanna make sure the assisted drawing is on, and once that's done, let's hit done. And here is your isometric grid. So I've got a new layer created and it's already on assist. You can turn on and off the assist by just clicking on the layer and hit drawing assist, but we want to make sure that's on. And so I got a black selected and just a monoline brush, and I'm just going to draw anywhere. And as you can see, wherever I go, my pen is just going to follow the grid. If I want to do another angle, I'm just going to hold it and just manually move it. So that's how the drawing assist works for the isometric grid. So let's clear all that. I've already got a sketch done of the house, basically using the same principles. So I'll put this house for download below so you can also practice the coloring. So we have this new layer created. I'm gonna go into my color palettes and I'm gonna select the campfire color palette, which I believe already comes with Procreate, because it has a variety of colors ranging from greens to browns, which is perfect for a house setting. So in my new layer, I'm gonna grab the monoline brush. So I'm gonna select this medium brown right there. And I'm gonna let my pen do the work. It's following that grid. However, going this way, I'm gonna have to force it because it wants to go on that angle. And same with this one. So you're gonna find that certain angles, you're gonna have to manually adjust it. I actually just want to put the sketch at the very top. All right, so let's do this roof. And to color drop, you're gonna have to close that shape in. So you can follow along as I finish coloring this drawing. So I'm going to create a new layer for the house and I'm going to put it underneath the roof. And with every new layer that you create, just make sure that you have the drawing assist on. And if you have to manually fix things, you can always turn it off. And I'm just going to turn off my roof so that I can see what I'm doing. Let's set our sun up here. So the sun is going to shine this way, meaning everything on this side is going to be highlighted and everything back here on the left is going to be shades darker. So I'm going to select a lighter shade of this color. And then on this layer, I'm going to turn off the assist and I'm going to put alpha lock. And what alpha lock does is it isolates what you've already colored so that if you want to go over it with a different color, it's not going to go outside of what you've colored already. Now you're probably wondering why I'm not color dropping this. It's only because it's almost the same color as the one over here, that if I color drop, it's going to just fill that whole entire area. Hope that makes sense. And I'm sure that there's a threshold that I can adjust, but I'm just too lazy right now. I'm just gonna color this in manually. All right, so let's turn off the sketch and you can see so far how that looks. Then I'll put the roof on as well. All right, next we can do the chimney and this little boxy thing up here. Let's create a new layer for that. We're gonna also turn on the assist. And in my palettes, I'm gonna select maybe this orange right here. And then for the other side, I'm gonna do a darker shade of that. And then I'm gonna create a new layer underneath the chimney so that I can do inside of the chimney. All right, I'm gonna create a new layer underneath the roof, and I'm gonna do this little box here, grabbing the same colors from this chimney by holding down, and then you'll see that color pop up on the color palette. So I'm gonna turn on Draw Assist again. Okay, next I'm gonna create a new layer, and I'm gonna grab a darker shade of the house exterior, and then I wanna make sure that the Draw Assist is on again. Then I'm gonna grab a lighter shade of that, and then we can do this side. All right, next let's work on the windows. So I'm gonna create a new layer for that, and I'm gonna put it underneath the chimney layer and make sure our Draw Assist is on. Now there's so many colors we can pick. I'm just gonna do something, I don't want it to be too contrasty, so just a darker version of this concrete color here. Now I'm gonna just create a new layer underneath the window layer, and I'm gonna add some window trim. And this is just a slightly lighter color. And then over on this side, it's going to be a little bit lighter. And if it helps you to turn the grid off, that's totally fine, just so you can see better. All right, next we can do the planter boxes. And again, create a new layer with the assist. And for the planter box color, I'm probably gonna do this dark brown here. And then we just want to select a slightly lighter version of that color. All right, inside, we're gonna do just a darker color again. I'm gonna create another layer underneath that with a draw assist. I'm probably gonna have to clean these up after. Things like this. So let me try to merge these layers together. So I'm gonna merge these two layers down. So these are just the planter boxes. So I'm gonna clean them up. All right, let's turn off the sketch, and so far, this is what we have. So as you can see, I just drew a green grass layer at the very bottom. And we're gonna do another layer underneath that. So let's duplicate this layer, and then we're gonna go to the bottom layer, and then we're gonna fill it with just a slightly darker color. Then I'm just gonna move this down. Let me get rid of the sketch, and you can see what's happening here. And then we're just gonna go back to that layer and just fill this gap. And we're not gonna bother with this corner because everything else is gonna cover it. All right, so this is what we have so far. What am I gonna do next? I'm gonna do this bench. So let me just start another layer, a new one on top of everything else. And I'm gonna grab this orangey color here. And then I'm gonna grab that darker orange to do the side shadow. All right, next we can do some greenery. So let's create another layer again, and we're gonna select a green. And this time we're gonna experiment with some of the brushes that Procreate has. So I'm gonna go into organic, and these might come with Procreate, I just don't remember. However, you can go into your organic brush library and see what you have there. So I have the tree trunks on top, so I'm just going to move that layer down underneath the leaves. So my tree trunk layer is on top of the leaves, so I'm just going to move it underneath it. And then I'm going to grab a darker color, just put some shadows in here. And then we can go lighter and put some highlights. All right, next we can do the planter boxes. So let's create another layer, and we're gonna put this underneath the tree trunks. And I'm gonna experiment with a different leaf brush. And we can add so many different colors here. I'm gonna choose a red. So maybe there's like a sprinkle of some roses or something. So we're kind of done here. Actually, I do want to fix the shadowing on this bench. I'm just going to make that a little bit darker. We're actually going to do the sky in the background. So let's go at the very bottom, create a new layer, and just make sure it's at the very bottom. And then we're going to select a blue. So I'm just going to paint the sky. Actually, I think I might want it a bit lighter than that. All right, and then we're going to do a medium blue in the center. And then a darker blue at the bottom. Then we're gonna go into our adjustments and Gaussian blur. We're just gonna blur that. I'm at about 38% here. All right, and lastly, the shadow, as I was talking about. Let's start off with the park bench first. We're gonna duplicate that layer. We're gonna use the one underneath. We're gonna go to adjustments, hue, saturation, brightness, and turn that all the way down to none. Right over here. And then we're gonna go to the arrow tool up here, and then we're gonna go to distort. And then we're gonna go to warp without actually hitting done. We're just gonna move some of these legs so that they kind of match, and it kind of looks like a shadow. I'm gonna go back to distort, go back to warp, something like that. I just gotta fix that part right here. Then we're gonna go to the adjustments tool and Gaussian blur again. And then we're gonna go back into the layer and hit the N over here and decrease that opacity. So it looks something like that. And I just want to erase any shadows that are appearing on the wall. And it might help if you use an airbrush as well, because some shadows will appear on the wall. All right, next we're gonna do the same thing with the trees. So let's go into our tree layer. I'm gonna merge that down, and I realize I have the chimney in there, so I'm gonna have to separate that. All right, so I've got my trees into one layer, and we're gonna do the same thing as the bench. So let's duplicate the trees. Then we're gonna go to the layer underneath, go into the adjustments tool, hue, saturation, brightness, bring the brightness all the way down. And then using the arrow tool, we're gonna distort. And I think I should have done this per tree, but we can fix that. All right, so it'll be something like this. Don't worry about it, I'm gonna fix it. I don't think we have to warp this. So what I'm gonna do now is go into the selection tool. I'm gonna select that tree shadow and just bring it down over here, and do the same thing for this one. And then go into adjustments, Gaussian blur again. You don't want to blur it too much because we kind of want the shape to remain. So something like that. And then we're gonna go into the layer and just decrease that opacity. Then we're gonna grab our eraser, and then we're just gonna erase anything that's not on the green. So there's just a tiny little bit of shadow right there. I'm just gonna lightly erase with an airbrush. I'm gonna decrease the opacity, just some of the shadowing on the bench. So the shadow is still there, just not as prominent as the shadow on the grass. And next, I'm just gonna move my mailbox over a little bit. So let's go find that layer. In fact, we could probably clean up some of these layers. All right, so my mailbox is on this layer. So let me grab my selection tool and I'm gonna move him right about there. And we forgot to do a walkway, so we can certainly do that. So let's copy and paste the mailbox. So because there's so many things on this layer, I'm just gonna select, hit copy and paste. And this one, I'm gonna turn all the way black again with the hue, saturation, brightness. And I'm just gonna move this underneath. Go back into the arrow tool and hit distort. And then we're gonna blur it and then decrease that opacity. All right, let's just finish up this walkway here. I'm just gonna go back to this house layer up here and then grab this color again with my monoline brush. I do want to put the assist on again, just to make sure I'm gonna be drawing at the right angle. We could possibly find some texture for that as well. So let's alpha lock that layer. We're gonna go into our brushes and then let's go to material. I'm gonna try this brush called Blackwood. So let me grab a slightly darker color. Kind of looks like concrete, I guess. All right, next, I just wanna do a little bit more shadowing on this side as well as where the chimney is. So I'm gonna create a new layer right above this house layer. And I'm gonna grab a slightly darker shade of the house. And I do wanna turn on my assist. I'm just gonna put a slight shadow under the planter boxes. All right, let's go into our adjustments, Gaussian blur. We're gonna slightly blur that. And then I'm just gonna erase some of the edges a little bit with an airbrush. Just over here. And then we're gonna put a little shadow right by the chimney. So I'm just gonna create a layer on top of the roof and just do a slightly darker shade there. And then blur that as well. All right, last thing I wanna do is just put a huge shadow underneath so it looks like it's floating. So I am going to grab this layer here, which is the top. I'm going to duplicate that, bring it all the way down to the bottom, which is going to be above the sky layer. And then I'm going to go to adjustments, hue, saturation, brightness, bring it all the way down to black. And then we're going to move it down. And then we're going to go back into the adjustments into Gaussian blur. And that's at about 16%. Then go back into the layer, hit the N, and decrease that opacity. And one last thing I forgot to do is just to put a shadow here where the house is going to cast. So I'm going to create a new layer above the grass, and I want to make sure the assist is on for that. I'm going to grab the green, grab a slightly darker shade, and let me get rid of that tree so I can see what I'm doing. And also this side should also be darker. So let's go back on this layer. I'm just gonna grab a darker shade. Then I'm gonna turn on alpha lock for that. All right guys, there's your isometric house. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. For more drawing tutorials and gadget reviews, be sure to subscribe to Draw with Marina.